On June 12, 2019, at 9:08, Alex Huang, one of Ing-Wen Tsai's spokespersons at the time, emailed Clive Wilson and copied Fang Longxi, offering to provide both an electronic copy and a hardbound copy of Tsai's doctoral thesis to LSE. About an hour later, at 9:56, Wilson informed Huang that, "If there is an electronic copy, we can almost certainly catalog it from that and make it available if it is a decent copy. It is unclear what would make an electronic copy of Tsai's thesis decent. Scanning quality? Or authenticity?" Wilson emailed Huang again at 10:43, showing that LSE didn't care. "LSE is holding back a press statement in the hope we can get the electronic copy thesis today. Can you let me know if this will be possible, please? If we can make the electronic copy available at LSETO with other LSE theses, we can link to it and hopefully end the speculation." It appears that the devised plan was to make the electronic copy of Tsai's doctoral thesis available at LSETO with LSE's other PhD theses and add a link to Tsai's doctoral thesis in LSETO to the press statement to show the existence of Tsai's doctoral thesis. The team believed that would end the speculation. She responded at 6:12 p.m. Tsai declined to release the thesis online through LSETO. The reason was, to make the electronic copy available at LSETO with other LSE theses will not end the speculation but invite many more, irrational, speculations from anti-Tsai camp. She asked if it was okay that the press statement only mentioned the arrival of the hardbound copy of the thesis. She then informed Wilson the presidential office is okay to send you the electronic copy now. It indicates that she believed the electronic copy was ready to be emailed to LSE immediately. Huang then confirmed Tsai's decision and concerns. The electronic copy could only be used for an internal check because it was indeed likely going to invite more irrational speculations. Regarding Tsai's refusal to disclose her thesis online, no records show any suspicions or concerns were raised at the LSE end. In addition, Huang changed the plan. "We are sending the hardbound editions of the subject thesis tomorrow, and I believe it will arrive by next week. As for the electronic copy, we will email it to you by Friday." It suggests that Tsai had at least 2 paper copies of her doctoral thesis. June 12, 2019, was a Wednesday. One copy would be posted to LSE the next day, June 13, 2019. An electronic copy would be made from the other paper copy on June 13, 2019, and emailed to LSE on June 14, 2019. Between June 12 and June 14, Wilson was dedicated to fending off inquiries about Tsai's non-existing doctoral thesis. He told Huang that he was pleased to note that Tsai won the party nomination. Daniel O'Connor's email on June 14, 2019, at 17:24, reveals LSE's plan in response to the query about Tsai's non-existing doctoral thesis. The first stage was releasing press statements and general responses to confirm Tsai's 1984 PhD degree. The second stage was receiving Tsai's PhD thesis in the library and then letting inquirers know that LSE had it. It should have been the other way around. In addition, the authenticity of Tsai's thesis needed to be verified. However, on June 14, 2019, Wilson did not receive the electronic copy as promised. He emailed Huang in the late evening at 10:02 p.m. "May I still expect an electronic copy today? The sooner we have a copy to verify the student record, the sooner we can make a more robust statement about its existence. An electronic copy will only be used for verification. We are not allowed to make it available to other people without specific permission from President Tsai." It indicates that Wilson thought the delay was caused by Tsai's concern about the public release of her thesis. On June 17, 2019, at 9:59, instead of an electronic copy of Tsai's thesis, Wilson received an electronic copy of the title page and the acknowledgements page to verify the student record. The title page disclosed the thesis title and thesis submission date. It was 1983, not 1984. The acknowledgements page disclosed the identity of Tsai's supervisor. In the email, Huang also informed Wilson that a printed copy of the thesis will be posted to you by this week. An electronic copy of Tsai's old thesis can only be made by scanning a paper copy. The electronic copy would not be ready until the paper copy was. On June 17, 2019, when Tsai's office emailed the title page and the acknowledgements page to LSE, the print copy of Tsai's doctoral thesis was not ready to be sent out, let alone the electronic copy. At 11:18, Wilson informed his colleagues at LSE that he received the title page and the acknowledgements page instead of an electronic copy of Tsai's thesis. Wilson's comment was, "Not sure how much these help at the moment." Wilson's email on June 20, 2019, at 15:03, shows that Fang Longxi helped chase Tsai's thesis for LSE. By then, LSE still hoped that the promised copy of Tsai's thesis would kill most of the speculations. On June 24, 2019, Cerny's comment on the authenticity of Tsai's thesis was, "Although it almost certainly is valid, we can't prove that this is what she submitted in 1983. That was after Cerny was alerted about Tsai's claim that her doctoral thesis was worth 2 PhDs. 3 days before LSE received the hardbound copy of Tsai's thesis on June 27, 2019, and 2 days before Cerny personally reviewed Tsai's LSE student file on June 26, 2019. At the time, Cerny had no opportunity to review Tsai's thesis and had not verified Simeon Underwood's confirmation of the validity of Tsai's 1984 PhD degree based on Tsai's LSE student file. At 5:14 p.m., Wilson couldn't wait any longer. He emailed Huang, checking on the status of the print copy. Based on Huang's response at 6:17 p.m., the hardbound copy was shipped out on June 21, Friday at the earliest, or June 24, Monday at the latest. Tsai did not have a copy of her doctoral thesis that could be sent to LSE when the offer was made on June 12, 2019. It took 9 to 12 days to make one. On June 28, 2019, at 12:11, Wilson reported to his colleagues that he received one softbound and one hardbound of Tsai's thesis the day before. He noted both were photocopies, showing that LSE did not expect to receive Tsai's doctoral thesis in the form of a photocopy. Furthermore, no records show that 2 copies of Tsai's thesis in 2 different forms raised any suspicions of the authenticity of Tsai's thesis. Wilson's email also initiated a group discussion about how to catalog Tsai's hardbound copy. Wilson was one of the few at LSE who had read Tsai's LSE student file. Regarding the authenticity of the hardbound copy of Tsai's thesis, Wilson's assessment was, "There are 2 draft chapters and an outline on the student record, and, in my humble opinion, there is enough of those in the thesis to suggest it is good. And besides, even with the whole wheel of government behind you, it would still be a rather neat trick to fake or rewrite a thesis as if it was done in 1983 and in the same font as the draft chapters." The outline was submitted in March 1981, 2 years and 4 months before Tsai submitted her doctoral thesis for PhD exam in June 1983. Those 2 draft chapters were submitted in July 1981, 2 years before Tsai submitted her doctoral thesis for PhD exam. At 14:09, Cerny stated that for the record, "I am actually satisfied that this is an accurate version of the thesis examined, but I obviously could not prove it." It was 2 days after Cerny read Tsai's LSE student file on June 26, 2019, and knew that UOL had issued a letter of certification to certify that Tsai's PhD was awarded after submitting a thesis title. On July 9, 2019, 1 day before the LSE library catalogued the hardbound copy, inquiries about Tsai's non-existing doctoral thesis kept coming. Cerny's response was, "I'm pretty relaxed about this, given that there is no question that the thesis existed and was examined." Around July 13, 2019, Tsai's thesis became searchable at the LSE Library online catalog. It was catalogued as a dissertation and PhD thesis. The date was 1983, not 1984, and the creation date was 2019. A note describes the thesis as a photocopy of Wen Tsai's personal copy of the original thesis presented to the library in 2019. On July 19, 2019, in a brief note prepared for the LSE School Management Committee led by Minuche Shafiq, former LSE president, and vice-chancellor, O'Connor reported that, although there was no reason to believe the thesis would be different to the original 1984 submission, we cannot be absolutely certain it is identical, as we do not have an original copy to compare. It shows that the team knew that Tsai's final hardbound copies should be submitted in 1984, not in 1983, as shown on the title page of Tsai's thesis. On August 5, 2019, Wan Lin flew to London and spent 3 days in the LSE Women's Library reviewing the photocopy of Tsai's personal copy of the original thesis created in 2019. He noticed dark shadows along the edges of or at the corner of every page, except for the very first 2 leaves, the title page and the acknowledgements page, which were free of any dark shadows. Though unbeknown to Lin that the title page and the acknowledgements page were emailed to LSE before the hardbound copy, he conjectured that the hardbound copy was a compilation of pages copied from another dissertation and bound into a hardcover book as an imposture, and the acknowledgements page was a retype. Lin paid special attention to the acknowledgements page because it disclosed the name of Tsai's supervisor. He also noticed 6 missing pages, a large number of typos, wrong footnote format, an inaccurate table of contents, and no overall concluding chapter. Yuntai Xu is a Taiwanese American with a PhD from the University of Oxford. He made 2 trips to the LSE Women's Library on September 13 and 16, 2019, respectively. The World Journal published his review of Tsai's personal copy in North America on September 18, 2019. Xu also noticed the dark shadows along the edges and suspected that the hardbound copy was a product of fax and photocopy. He was surprised by the poor quality of the photocopying job. Unlike Lin's observation, Xu found that the acknowledgements page, the abstract, and the introduction were free of dark shadows. These pages were numbered differently from the rest of Tsai's thesis. The acknowledgements page was unnumbered, and the introduction was numbered with lowercase Roman numerals. Dennis Pang is the former dean of the Graduate Institute of Journalism at the National Taiwan University, now running personal media on YouTube. Based on Lin and Xu's observation, Pang suspected that Tsai had a bound thesis she was unwilling to disclose because it would reveal a thesis title different from Unfair Trade Practices and Safeguard Actions. Under immense pressure, on September 23, 2019, a press conference was held by Tsai's office in the Presidential Office Building in Taipei. To prove the validity of Tsai's 1984 PhD, UOL and LSE tried very hard to prove the existence of Tsai's doctoral thesis in the Senate House Library and the IALS Library. However, in the press conference, Tsai's office displayed the manuscript of Tsai's thesis to prove the existence of Tsai's doctoral thesis. It was unbound and kept in a box.
好，我先简单说明，所以各位看得到，这是原稿。那原稿为什么会没有装订呢？很简单，因为当年只能用影印的，所以你如果第一本把它装订了，你后面还要再拆开来影印，事实上是有困难，因为我们没有其他的储存的这个设备。好，那这个待会那个会后各位可以来拍摄。简单说明，这本博士论文它过去这个原稿经过了35年，当时没有任何的储存设备，而也经过了多次的翻译，所以各位可以看到岁月的痕迹。那现在 LSE 图书馆的版本就是我们寄还给他的版本，中间有缺6页的部分，那确实是在翻译的过程当中有疏漏，但经过相关的查找，其实我们的相关的那个其他年代的这个翻译本 可以看到完整的那个页字。
The speaker in the video clip is Alex Huang. He admitted that 6 pages were missing from the hardbound copy collected by the LSE library. One PowerPoint slide used in the press conference disclosed that the hardbound copy collected by the LSE library in June 2019 was made by photocopying another photocopy, leaving traces of photocopying. If the hardbound copy had been made by photocopying another photocopy of the loose-leaf manuscript, it would not have left traces of photocopying. Based on Young Tai Su's observation, the acknowledgements page, the abstract, and the introduction were free of dark shadows. With Tsai's manuscript, photocopying, binding, and adding a new acknowledgements page, new abstract, and new introduction did not need 9 to 12 days. It was more likely than not that Tsai had the manuscript of her doctoral thesis but could not find it and did not try to find it after the offer was made to LSE on June 12, 2019, and before the hardbound copy was shipped to the LSE library on June 21 or June 24, 2019. The traces of photocopying confirm the existence of the dark shadows observed by Lin and Xu. The hardbound copy collected by the LSE library was not a photocopy of the loose-leaf manuscript but a photocopy of another bound photocopy of Tsai's thesis. Tsai was unwilling to disclose that bound photocopy of her thesis in the press conference. On November 30, 2022, to prove the existence of Tsai's doctoral thesis to the Taiwan Taipei District Court, Tsai's attorney presented the manuscript of Tsai's doctoral thesis to the court as evidence, not that bound photocopy of Tsai's thesis. As Peng suspected, Tsai was indeed unwilling to disclose that bound photocopy of her doctoral thesis, not even to the court for her criminal defamation case. Since that bound photocopy could not be disclosed, Tsai was forced to disclose the manuscript to prove the existence of her doctoral thesis. She most likely found the manuscript as a cover-up shortly before September 23, 2019. After the press conference on September 24, 2019, Tsai told the media that
老实讲了，我为了找这个论文也翻箱倒柜啊，把家里的仓库都找到，才找了半天才找到了啊。
Doctoral thesis is submitted for the award of a PhD degree. Once the PhD degree is awarded, there is no need to make new copies of the doctoral thesis. Most, if not all, PhD students keep several duplicates of their final examined thesis submitted for the final PhD award. However, according to Huang's explanation, Tsai did not keep duplicates of her doctoral thesis because there was no storage tool in the early 1980s, and a bound thesis had to be taken apart in order to make new copies. Instead, Tsai kept the manuscript of her doctoral thesis, and for unfathomable reasons, she photocopied the manuscript several times to make new copies after earning her PhD in 1984. Some copies were still in Tsai's possession in 2019, allowing her to find those 6 missing pages. Tsai had at least one bound photocopy of her doctoral thesis when the offer was made to LSE on June 12, 2019, but Tsai chose not to send that bound photocopy to the LSE library for collection on June 13, 2019, as promised by Alex Huang. Instead, Tsai's office spent 9 or 12 days photocopying that bound photocopy, binding the photocopied leaves into the hardbound copy, and shipping the final product to LSE on June 21 or June 24, 2019. Why? On August 26, 2021, Defen Ho disclosed one document the Ministry of Education provided her on June 3, 2021. It was provided in response to an order of the Taipei High Administrative Court under the Freedom of Government Information Act. The document was Tsai's National Chengchi University Teacher Qualification Review CV dated September 28, 1984, submitted to the Ministry of Education on December 8, 1984, for the qualification review of Tsai's position as an associate professor at Chengchi University. In the CV, Tsai handwrote that the title of her doctoral thesis was Law of Subsidies, Dumping, and Market Safeguards, not Unfair Trade Practices and Safeguard Actions. Dun Han Chong, one of Tsai's spokespersons, released his response in the late Sunday evening of August 29, 2021. He did not deny the authenticity of Tsai's CV but argued that Tsai's 1983 doctoral thesis consisted of 3 parts. The newly revealed thesis title, Law of Subsidies, Dumping, and Market Safeguard, was the title of Part 2 of Tsai's doctoral thesis. Part 2 constituted the central part of Tsai's doctoral thesis, 237 pages out of a 365-page thesis. In other words, the doctoral thesis submitted to the Ministry of Education around September 1984 had a different title page, different table of contents, different abstract, and different introduction, and no Part 1 and no Part 3 of the hardbound copy collected by the LSE library. The September 1984 edition of Tsai's doctoral thesis might have been the bound photocopy of Tsai's doctoral thesis from which the hardbound copy collected by the LSE library was made. However, those 6 missing pages, pages 5 through 10 in Chapter 1, Part 1, were not part of the September 1984 edition to begin with. Tsai had other old bound photocopies of her thesis allowing her to find those 6 missing pages, but none could be shipped out to the LSE library for collection on June 13, 2019. Tsai's office had 9 to 12 days to produce a new hardbound copy, but the quality of the photocopying job was poor. It indicates that Tsai's office had much more work than a simple photocopying and binding job. In the press conference, Alex Huang also announced that a digital copy of Tsai's personal copy would be available online through the National Central Library in Taiwan. On September 27, 2019, at 9:54, Clive Wilson informed his colleagues about the news. The email also indicated that Tsai's office also offered LSE a digital copy and a replacement printed copy that did not have the missing pages. Daniel O'Connor responded at 10:01. I assume you mean the new copy will include the missing pages? It indicates that LSE knew that the hardbound copy collected by the LSE library had some missing pages, and it hoped to receive a new copy with all the missing pages. Wilson replied at 13:57. Yes, a copy of the thesis with no missing pages would be nice. The National Central Library has now made the digitized version available. It is a beautifully clean copy, with none of the scruffy photocopying of our copy. On October 2, 2019, Kevin Haynes received an email warning that Tsai's thesis collected by the LSE library and the copy downloadable on the website of the National Central Library in Taiwan were not identical. Daniel O'Connor's response at 11:34 indicates that Marcus Cerny, Mark Thompson, Kevin Haynes, Wilson, and O'Connor all knew LSE had a facsimile of Tsai's copy of the thesis, not a facsimile of the thesis. There were some missing pages. Neither copy was the final thesis submitted in 1984. It was always Tsai's personal copy from not 1983, not 1984, but 2019. They all had observed what Wan Lin and Young Tai Shu had observed. All of them could have raised the suspicion Dennis Pong had raised that Tsai had a bound doctoral thesis when the offer was made, but she was unwilling to send that copy to the LSE library for collection. Tsai's refusal to disclose her thesis through LSETO, failure to provide the promised electronic copy on June 14, 2019, and the serious delay in supplying the promised thesis, the hardbound copy and the softbound copy in the photocopy form are critical facts showing that the suspicion should have been much stronger. The email again confirms that they all knew that Tsai's final thesis should have been submitted in 1984, not at the examination stage in June 1983. In addition, they all knew the difference between a facsimile of the thesis and a facsimile of Tsai's copy of the thesis. Yet, the next day at 9:24, Cerny argued that we were very careful to avoid wording that suggested this was the copy submitted for examination or for final award. Those copies are lost, and we have acknowledged that. Beyond that, there is not much to say. In response to the second FOIA request, on August 7, 2020, LSE claimed that it downloaded a scanned copy directly from the National Central Library and uploaded the scanned copy to the LSETO. It indicates that LSE denied that it was the publisher of the digital copy of Tsai's personal copy of the thesis. However, the response to the warning email drafted by Haynes on October 3, 2019, at 16:34, was, "We are unable to comment on the version sent to Taiwan's National Central Library." Haynes circulated the drafted response for comments. Cerny responded at 16:47. "Totally happy with that." O'Connor responded at 16:56. "I suspect it will wind them up, but I think that's all we can say." Wilson's comment on his own assessment of the authenticity of Tsai's personal copy was the content, style of language, and typeface are all consistent with two draft chapters that we have as part of Dr. Tsai's student record, and it might not be an expert opinion, but it was pretty glaring. LSE responded to the first FOIA requested on November 4, 2019. In the response, LSE stated that, LSE do not claim Ms. Tsai's personal copy of the original thesis as a true copy but believe it is on balance of probabilities because there are two draft chapters in her student record that were clearly rewritten, but the content appears in the copy. LSE is a prestigious higher education institution that enjoys global fame. Its balance of probabilities test rested entirely on the humble opinion of Clive Wilson, a librarian and a low-ranking LSE library manager with no educational training or professional experience in law or economics. According to LSE's response to a FOIA request on November 4, 2019, LSE accepted the photocopy of Tsai's personal copy of the thesis as a substitute but not a replacement of Tsai's doctoral thesis.